message, but I think you'll all be blessed by it. I gave a word about this a few years ago. I don't know when. I looked back and I couldn't find it. So it's how long ago. Probably computers didn't exist. I'm just kidding. But anyways, there's quite a message today about overcoming trials and tribulations and things. We'll get into Job. We'll talk about Job a little bit today, but I kind of want to set the foundation of the message today. And like I said, I'm a week off, but this past, what's today's date? Oh my gosh, what is it? 20th. Okay. So, so it's like, I don't know, more than that, maybe 2 weeks. But I would have brought the message last week is the point. But anyway, it's a week that we take out of the month of October, okay? And it's October 4th to the 10th, and it is Fire Prevention Week, okay? As a nation, we commemorate, I use my words correctly here, commemorate something that happened years and years and years ago. It was, I believe, in 1871. Of course, the first page that I've got on my notes doesn't have that date. Why not, right? October 8th, 1871, the Great Fire of Chicago swept through Chicago. And that's why we commemorate that week. It was, he's a socialist, but his name's Woodrow Wilson. He's the one that started this. And hang on, maybe I got that wrong. It was back in the day. Excuse me. Calvin Coolidge. Wow. I saw something yesterday about Woodrow Wilson, but hang on a minute. Let me just read my notes. It's there. Trust me. In the United States, the first National Fire Prevention Day proclamation was issued by President Woodrow Wilson in 1920. Thank you, Jesus. When President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed the first National Fire Prevention Week on October 4th through the 10th, 1925, he noted that in the previous year, some 15,000 people in that time died from fires in the United States, calling the loss startling. So 15,000 people in 1924 had passed away because of fires, okay? Isn't that crazy when we think about that? Coolidge proclamation stated, this waste results from the conditions which justify a sense of shame and honor. For the great part of it could and ought to be prevented. It is highly desirable that every effort be made to reform the conditions which have made possible so vast a destruction of national wealth. So basically, a tragedy happens in 1871, and some years later, we make it a National Fire Prevention Week, okay? And as a kid, the firemen used to come into the church in October, right? They didn't really think about it in October, but they come in and they give you goodies and things like that. And they talk about fire alarms, what to do, get down, smoke, things like that, right? Because this is part of learning if we ever have a fire in our house. So, go back to the Chicago fire in 1871. They say some 300 people passed away because it was so bad that some of the people they were just incinerated, right? And so, or taken off in the river or whatever the case is. But this fire went across, I forget how many acres it is. I've got it in my notes, but it's irrelevant because the idea is it was a vast fire. The way the buildings were built, they had wooden structures for like sidewalks, roads. It was just all wood, okay? And when this stuff caught on fire, it was a dry year, and it just lit up, and it went through the winds, and all those things went through and destroyed millions of dollars worth of homes. There was devastation, destruction, loitering. It was just mass, can you imagine? The whole city is burned up, and people are trying to survive, okay? One person that survived this fire was a notable man. And how awesome is it that this particular man was born in Troy, New York? Can you imagine that? And his birthday is today. Would have been today. He's long since gone. I want to find I'm so unorganized this morning. This person that I'm talking about is a famous person that we know that we don't know. His name is Horatio Gates Spafford. And this man was a real estate guy. He had investments in the northern part of Chicago, I believe it was. And prior to the 1871 fire, he lost his own son to a disease, and I can't remember what the disease was, but he lost his young son. He was like 4 or 5 years old. Lost him because of a lung disease. I don't know if it was tuberculosis or scarlet fever or something of the day, right? And so 1871 comes along, and it wipes out all of his real estate. His wealth is gone, okay? This man has been wiped out. Loses his son, loses his real estate, his business, and all these things. And if that wasn't bad enough for this man, he had 4 daughters at the time as well. And some years later, a couple years later, he had decided, he was a follower of D.L. Moody. Anybody ever heard of D.L. Moody? He was a follower of him. He was a Christian man, by the way. And so he was, the family followed D.L. Moody. And they went and worked with him and tried to help him. But there was something going on, I believe, in Britain area, or British, Britain, oh my God, New England, oh my gosh, England, not New England, England, okay? And it brought Mom, the mother, the wife of Horatio Spafford, Anna. She gets on this boat, and he had to stay behind to tidy up some business. And so they're heading across the Atlantic, and they have a collision with a steel, ship of some sort, freighter ship, and it immediately wipes out the boat and takes down the boat. It's completely destroyed, sinks, and there was, I don't have the figure in front of me, but there was 100 and some people that passed on that boat when it went down. And 4 of the people that were lost in that ship sinking was Horatio and Anna's 4 children, their 4 daughters. She survived, 4 didn't. Now he's lost 5 children. He's lost all of his money, his investments, and all these things. And the wife gets across the pond and sends a telegram back, and it says, saved alone. What should I do? Mama has lost 4 babies in this ship being sunk in the middle of the Atlantic. Tragedy strikes to so many things in our life, and the death of a child. Can you imagine losing 5? And as I go on with this story, this is a real story. This man, Horatio Gates Spafford, wrote a song that we sing, and it's in your hymnals, and has brought many people to Jesus. And it is said that this song, the words to this song, were written as they crossed over where they lost their children. And the song is called, "It Is Well With My Soul." It is well with my soul. Later on, a few years later, they had another son that they named Horatio, after the first son, Horatio, and his name Horatio, because they've lost their first son, and he passes at age 4 or 5 as well. 6 children. It is well with my soul. How can it be that such a time of tribulation in this man's life and having everything ripped out from underneath him somehow benefit anything? I'll tell you how. Because those kids went to be with Jesus. And a song came out of that has touched so many people's lives since the late 1800s until right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, our song that we're going to sing as a closing song is "It Is Well With My Soul." Isn't that amazing? Still touches people. And funerals and ceremonies and just church services around this nation and around the world today still sung. But if you've never heard that story, does it not change what you think about that song? Because when you sing it today, when we close that song, I can't help but think about losing everything. And yet it is well with my soul. Isn't that amazing? We go to the book of Job. I'm just going to read chapter 1. There once was a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz, or Uz, however you want to say it. He was blameless, a man of complete integrity.